Hello, everyone. How are you doing today? Everyone is doing well today. Thank you for joining us. Just before we dive in today, I want to briefly just introduce Thrively, go over a few important little details just to make sure we have a very smooth and enjoyable webinar. So first, just to start off, I'm sure many of you know all about Thrively, but we're founded on a core philosophy that every child has a genius and they deserve to thrive. So our saying is, what's wrong with you, not what's wrong with you. So our core mission is to bring a paradigm shift into education with strengths-based learning. So at Thrively, we created the industry's first strengths assessment to unlock positive learning identities and strengths for every learner, just to increase their confidence and self-esteem. We measure hope as a cognitive trait with our Hope Index, which helps develop agency and resilience. And lastly, this one's probably my personal favorite, we ensure emotional security with our Well-Being Index. We do this by creating strengths-based, joyful, and hopeful learning environments that impact academic outcomes. So a little bit about our webinar session today. It's going to be 30 minutes. We'll explore how one school, amazing school, has expanded on the RIASEC assessment within our Thrively platform to enhance career exploration and create meaningful learning experiences for all their students. A little bit more. All right, and just thank you again for joining us today. So let's get going. Perfect. So our learning today, we're going to be looking at Vista Unified School District, and then a little bit closer at Vista Magnet Middle School. So that's where Miss Christina comes in. So we're going to be looking at their Thrively implementation, and then some of their engaging activities connected with career and CTE connections. We'll also be looking ahead at next steps and then best practices. And we'll have a little bit of time right at the end just for Q&A. Perfect. Here you go. So just a little background information about us, your facilitators. My name is Danielle Horning. I'm a customer success manager with Thrively. I've been in education for the last 6 years. So I was previously a sixth grade teacher for the past 4 years, a reading intervention teacher, and a preschool teacher. And then we have on board with us today, Miss Christina Andrade, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Christina Andrade, and I'm a second-year school counselor here at Vista Magnet, and I do have 6 years of experience within the middle school level.
Thank you. We're so happy to have you here today. So Christina, if you wouldn't mind, just to give a little bit more context, if you can share a little bit about Vista Unified School District and then kind of an overview of Vista Magnet.
Yeah, so Vista Unified is in North County of San Diego, and we have about 18,000 students enrolled. We have K through 12 schools, and about 43% of our students are eligible to receive free or reduced lunch. And then we also have 16% of our students are English language learners. And then within Vista Magnet Middle School, we are a 6th through 8th school, and we have about 819 students enrolled at our school. We also have about 71.9% of our students are Hispanic, 17.3% of our students identify as white, and then 4.3% are Asian. And then we also have 65.5% of our students are socioeconomically disadvantaged, and we have 8.8% of our students as emerging bilingual. So they are learning English as their second language.
Awesome, thank you. So, we've gone a little bit over the demographics now. So I want to take kind of a closer look at Vista Magnet, where you work. So can you tell us a little bit about the school's, unique strengths or areas of focus when it comes to how you best support your students and engage them?
Yeah, so our school is very unique. We are an IB school and a magnet school. And then within our school, we have what we call villages. So each student has the same core teachers, and they kind of move like within their own little cohort. So a few students have, the same classes with their classmates. And so it really does build, community, and they're able to kind of stay within that same little group. And then they have those same three teachers. And that's also very convenient for us because we're able to really collaborate with our teachers and kind of consult on how we can better help each student and how we can just support academically. So that really does make our school, unique in the sense that we are, almost like a community, and we all work together to kind of help all of our kiddos.
Yeah, no, you guys, I've been, to a few of Vista's campuses, and you guys do an amazing job at just building community and really, I would say, setting a safe and welcoming environment for all your students. So as we dive in, I just want to look at, how has Vista Magnet really implemented Thrively to support your students here?
Yes, so this year at Vista Magnet, we started using Thrively. And so we not only like as a counseling department have used it, but our teachers as well. So as you can see, there's a few journal prompts that our teachers created. So for the first one on screen is, trying to get our students to feel prepared for high school. So a few of our teachers, they created this journal, and then we had a few students respond. And then every year we have student-led conferences, which are in the fall and in the spring. And so for our spring conferences, our teachers started using Thrively as well. They created journals, and then students were able to respond to those journal questions.
That's awesome. And then just looking at, what other features are you guys utilizing? I know on here we have like the strengths assessment. Do you feel like that's helped, I would say, build confidence in your students?
Yes, definitely. I feel like a lot of our students have a hard time just identifying things that they're good at. And
Mm.
so with Thrively, it just kind of puts like their little their strengths. And then I just tell them if they're not sure, like, oh, let's look on Thrively. And then it just tells them right there. And so they're able to kind of see like, oh yeah, those are things that I like, and those are things that I'm good at.
Kind of reinforcing that with them.
Mhm.
That's awesome. So you mentioned, there's about 819 students on your campus. And I know we've talked about that there's 3 counselors on your campus. So how have you guys used Thrively in both, I would say, individual and group settings?
Mhm. Individually, right now, we are helping our eighth graders pick their high school classes for next year. And so when I meet with a student, I always like to share my top RIASEC scores. And I kind of tell them, like, well, if I wasn't going into high school, like I would pick, art because one of my top traits is artistic. And so I kind of help them, like, give them an example. And then I pull up their Thrively, and I pull up their top RIASEC scores. And then when it's time for them to pick their electives, they're not really sure. And so I say, well, it looks like you're social. So maybe picking something like patient care, something that you would like. And so that's how I use it within individually. And then also similar with our groups, we did our classroom lesson on high school transition. And so we brought up, our RIASEC scores for each of our counselors. And then we kind of gave our example of like, well, if I was going to high school, like this is what I would pick based on my strengths and then my top scores.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. And you kind of led into this. Um, can you share how students have been using Thrively for career exploration and connections to CTE pathways?
Yes, so we did a classroom lesson earlier this school year to all of our sixth and seventh graders. And then I also linked the slides to our classroom lesson, which I can go over just very quickly. But we also, since we do have a large number of our students are emerging bilinguals, I translated as much as I could to kind of give access to our emerging bilingual students. But we can start with slide 5. So we did this little game. It's called Fact or Cap. And then we just asked them like a couple of questions. Like the first one, you can see it's like, if you work 40 hours a week until you're 64, you will have worked a little more than 90,000 hours in your lifetime. And then they kind of see like, okay, it's true or it's cap. And then we did that for our like opening activity, and the kids, they really liked it. And it was kind of, it was cool to see them excited about college and career. And then we kind of went over the answers, and then we can move on to slide 11. So then we talked about like what the RIASEC is, because a lot of them, they don't know what that is. They've never seen it or heard about it. So we kind of gave them a brief overview. And then slide 12, that's kind of similar to where it kind of goes into each of the top traits. And then we can move on to the next slide. So this is where we had a little bit of a challenge, but we wanted to create a journal for the students to kind of reflect on their RIASEC. But for whatever reason, we had a really hard time for the students to find this journal. And so when we were giving the lesson, we kind of had to, kind of think of a way of how we could do it better for the next class, because we were kind of stuck since they weren't able to find the journal. So for our other classrooms, we put this on pause, and then we just kind of had them like get up and group within their top trait and kind of have a discussion. But that was kind of like a bump that we had. And then slide 15 through 18, this is where we kind of had to like shift. And so we made these cards and we printed them. And then for each of the tables that were in the classroom, we just set that card on that table. And then we had the students go to their top trait and then kind of discuss like, what do you all have in common? What career do you find interesting? And then what career do you think that's not on there, but that you're interested in? And then they kind of had a conversation. And then slide 21. This was just like a recap on what the RIASEC is. And then for slide 22, that was like how they can take the RIASEC. So we had them complete the assessment. And then for 23, we just had them do the activity. So those were the instructions. And then we also collect pre and post data. So the last thing that our kids did was take the post assessment, and then I can share that with you all. But one of the questions that we asked was, how familiar are they with the RIASEC? And so as you could see, the top pictures, a lot of them did not know what the RIASEC was. So we said a 1 is not familiar, and then a 5 is very familiar. So you could see that we had a large group of students put that a number 1 because they weren't too sure. And then after the lesson, we had them take the post survey, so we can see that there was a lot of 5s and 4s. So a lot of them really understood what the RIASEC was and how they can use it. And then another question that we asked is, I believe it is important to consider my interests when looking into a career. And so we had a 33.3% increase from that logged as number 5. So we had a lot of our kiddos measure that they feel like, looking into your interest ties to having a good career. So we did have that increase as well.
Which that's amazing. That is amazing. Did you guys utilize the pre-assessment to adjust your instruction prior to the activities?
So we didn't like change any of our pre and post questions, but from our data, we can kind of see what students kind of struggled, or one of the other questions that we asked on the post was like, what career or what job interests you? And so we had a few students put that they weren't sure or that they didn't know. And so I just kind of followed up with those students individually and saw like their top traits and kind of reminded them like, you can explore different career paths on Thrively, and just kind of planted that seed as to like potential careers.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Um, For educators, I would say looking to deepen their work, with college and career readiness, what advice do you think you'd give them just for utilizing Thrively at a middle school level?
I would say start early. We did this lesson and we used Thrively earlier this year, but then we had to use it again for our eighth graders to help them pick their high school classes and then create their academic plan. But I do feel like it was almost kind of rushed and we didn't have enough time to kind of explore Thrively, like play around with it. So I would say like if you are interested, just kind of start early and make an account and just kind of play with it because that's kind of how I learned how to use all the different settings. But I would say, start earlier rather than later.
Mhm. And, if you're looking to expand on career exploration soon, just in the process of getting started, we have created a college and career readiness teacher guide. It's one of our program guides, just as a support for educators and a guide. And the RIASEC is one of the assessments that's involved in that. So you'll actually see this in the chat. Just as a reminder, we're going to provide all resources at a later date as well when that webinar recording comes out, just so you have that. And then, Miss Andrade and then Miss Cario and Miss Ward they've been amazing in really moving the work forward and expanding on the RIASEC assessment. So it's led to some amazing collaboration and activities that we've made for students. And so we're actually going to put this in the chat as well, the RIASEC guide and additional activities in there for you guys, just as a resource of, we want students to be able to take different assessments within Thrively to get to know themselves. But we also want this to be, they're not just getting the results and then they move on with their life. We want this to be meaningful and impactful to them. And, how are we utilizing this data and really exploring additional content with them. So yeah, I feel that your guys' activities that you've done with them have really enhanced their knowledge of the RIASEC and their understanding. And obviously with your data, I mean, you guys have done an amazing job of getting them excited for their careers. So that's the overall hope, right? And then just looking at, what's coming down the pipeline, what are your next steps as you think about maximizing your guys' implementation and use of Thrively?
Yes, so for next year, we really want to work more closely with our teachers, our staff, our admin. We want everyone to kind of be involved and use Thrively and kind of use like common language to get our students to kind of understand and be reminded of what the RIASEC is, how they can use Thrively. Right now, we are doing a lot of work with Thrively with our eighth graders, but in the future, like we want to use it for sixth and seventh grade as well. And so to do that, we kind of just need the support from everyone here at school.
Yeah. Yeah, I think having everyone on board is so important, especially, what you said with, you know, getting that common language across the board is huge. I know one of the items on here is portrait of an eighth grader. Do you mind just kind of giving a little background information to what that is?
Yes, so our district, they really emphasize on the portrait of an eighth grader. And so we want all of our eighth graders to be empathetic, kind, curious, open-minded, so that they're prepared for high school and beyond. And so this year we dove into that with creating their academic plan. And then that plan follows them all throughout high school and then 2 years after they graduate high school. So we do tie the language with the learner, with the portrait of an eighth grader, but then our eighth grade plan.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, I know they take the strengths assessment and then they take the RIASEC as well as just a part of the portrait of an eighth grader. Awesome.
Yes, they take both. Mhm.
Perfect. And then I know your guys' open house is going to be on May 15th and career days on May 22nd. Are you guys hoping to implement Thrively in either one of those?
For our career day, um, I think this would be for next year, but my idea was to have them kind of create like a resume and they could use their top traits, they could use their strengths that can be found on Thrively, to create their resume. So for this year, just because of time, I don't think that's going to happen. But for sure, next year we want them to kind of tie, Thrively and their career, and then having like our college and career fair be kind of like a almost like a job interview where they like present their resume, they ask questions, and then they learn that way.
No, that's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. We have a little bit of time just for questions. I saw a really good one in here. Um, just given your experience, your positive experience in middle school, how do you see Thrively being used in high school? So, if you're continuing on from what you guys have been doing.
I would say it's kind of the same as middle school and how we're using it here. I know for our high school counseling team, they continue with the academic plan and then they revisit it in 10th grade and then 12th grade. So they would still be checking, their strengths, their RIASEC scores. I know that students have the option to retake both of those and kind of track their progress to see, if they've improved or if their interests have been changed. And then that would be used at the high school level to, pick classes for the following year and then for college as well, if students decide that they want to do college or if they want to join the workforce.
Okay, so kind of gearing them towards, a path. That's great.
Mhm.
That's great. Let's see. And then how has Thrively helped your students see a positive future for themselves?
So something that I've noticed is some students don't realize the strengths that they have. And so when I kind of ask, like what are some things that you're good at or things that they like, they're not really sure. And so that's when I pull up Thrively and then I kind of reminded them like, this is what you score. Like these are things that you're good at and these are things that you should be proud of. And so when I say that, students kind of like it kind of clicks for them and then they see like, oh yeah, you're right. Like I am good at those things, but it does take kind of like a reminder to kind of get them to see that.
Mhm. No, it's great that you're bringing that into play because I think, I don't know, we as adults even wave off, oh no, that's not me. So it's great that you're having those conversations with students. And then we have one more, are families involved in students' career exploration within Thrively in any way?
So currently, we did encourage families to sit down with their eighth grader and, discuss the classes that they can take for ninth grade. But because Thrively is new at our school, we didn't really get the chance to kind of involve parents as much as we would like. So for next year, like for sure, we want to involve them in creating their academic plan. We do plan on, using this common language within our school and in our families as well. So we want families to be more involved, whether it's like, using the same language or helping with their academic plan. We do want them to kind of, be more involved next school year.
That's great. That's great. You guys have a great plan ahead for next year and just finishing off the this year strong. So that's amazing. Okay. All right. And then just as we close, thank you all for joining us today. Um, you have been an amazing audience. Great questions. Thank you. We hope you found this session insightful and that it challenged your thinking, your professional practices, and gave you some great ideas for how you can just continue with career exploration. Um, we do have a quick little survey in there. If you can take that, just tell us, or sorry, that's the survey for our Google form, just if you want to get a free Thrively account that you can utilize. Apologies for that. And our next webinar is actually going to be April 29th. It's going to have to do with our after school program connection. And again, we have our links on here. If you are interested in learning more about Thrively, you can always reach out to us at thrively@thrively.com or explore at www.thrively.com. But thank you all so much. You've been amazing. And thank you, Christina, for being here today. Your knowledge and experience is so insightful. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everyone.